Now, in the aftermath of the Christmas Eve massacre of innocent Nigerians in Plateau State, a former Senate President David Mark this week called on President Bola Tinubu to declare a state of emergency in the nation's security sector. On his own part, the president, in his New Year address to Nigerians, claimed that security of lives and property across the country had been a marked improvement under his administration. To take this conversation a little further, we're now being joined by a former spokesman of the Nigerian Air Force, Group Captain Sadeeq Shehu, retired, who is now a security and policy analyst. Happy New Year to you and welcome to Newsday. It's good to have you with us.
Thank you, and Happy New Year to you and the viewers.
Very good, Group Captain. Now, what will it take to review Nigeria's security architecture being proposed by former Senate President David Mark to President Tinubu, you think?
Thank you very much. First, I would like us to start this conversation by understanding what do we mean when we say security architecture. I think since security challenges started bedeviling Nigeria from 2009, I think the most mentioned, the most used phrase is security architecture. However, it is very important for us to understand what is this security architecture that we are talking about. Now, when you talk about security architecture, some people just see it like a change in service chiefs, change in IGP, change in NSE. But that is not all. Security architecture combines the security actors themselves. That is the security services, whether military, whether police, intelligence services, custom, immigration. These are the security actors. But they are not the only part of the security architecture. The security architecture also includes the management bodies of the security architectures, whether ministries that are supervising these agencies. It also includes oversight agencies like National Assembly and the oversight that comes also from the executive. Security architecture also includes the legal or constitutional provision that sets up this security services, whether in the constitution, whether in bylaws, whether in constitutive acts. So when you say you want to reject the security actor, I want us to understand you are not only rejigging the military or rejigging the police or changing the service chief or changing the... No, what you are talking about is that the way the military and other security agencies do their things has to change. The way they are managed has to change. The way they are oversighted has to change. The way they train, the way they are equipped, all these things have to change. So when we are talking about rejigging of security architecture, I would like us to understand that it is something that will involve the security agencies themselves, the executive branch, supervising militaries, the National Assembly, and so on and so forth. In fact, up to the extent of judiciary and possibly the civil service organization, civil society organization. Now, having said that, for a long time, we started thinking of this security architecture rejigging, but it has always been talk and nothing has been done. The last government to try to do something like rejigging security architecture, if my memory serves me right, is the Obasanjo administration. Obasanjo administration attempted a defense security reform, confined only to the military. I remember he brought an American organization. It was the process of that defense sector reform that there was a misunderstanding between the then late General Malu and Obasanjo, will lead to General Malu leaving the service. But since after Obasanjo, no regime has actually attended, and I have to underline that even the Obasanjo administration, it wanted to do a defense security reform. That is not the whole security package. But what is facing us now is that we need to look at the whole gamut of the security architecture and reform it. After Obasanjo, I didn't see any regime. Of course, so many committees, even the last regime, I'm aware they set up 2 committees for the reform, also of only the armed forces and the Ministry of Defense. But none of those recommendations have been, have been implemented. So definitely it is facing us, whether it is in Plateau, whether it is in the Northeast, whether it is in the Southwest, whether everywhere, we are facing security challenges, which shows us that the security architecture we have now is not answering to the needs. There is a famous architect who gives the term form follows function. That is the form or the shape or the structure of anything is designed so that it does a particular work. Even about military circles, there is unanimity that initially we had a security structure or a security architecture that is designed to fight external aggression. We design our military in such a way that we are expecting either we'll have differences with Chad or Cameroon or neighboring countries where our military or other security agencies will be fighting similar professional bodies that are structured, that are trained, that are organized like the way we are. That is very easy for the fighter. But what we are seeing now, the likelihood of Nigeria fighting war with another country is receding. The challenges we are having and the challenges we are likely to have in the future are challenges from within the country. It is not military, professional military to professional military. They are not organized in platoons or sections or battalions. We are organized in sections, platoons, battalions, divisions. So that is to say, we have to put our minds, we have to change our structure to respond to this threat. That is why I also joined the call for the review of the security structure, but everybody needs to understand what does that entail. It is a very comprehensive process that will cover all these areas, and it's going to involve everybody. Changing service chief certainly itself is only a small drop when you talk about rejigging security architecture. Happily or luckily, the agenda under which President Bola Tinubu emerged, that is the renewed hope agenda, it mentioned in 2 lines the reforming of the security architecture and doctrine. So far, that has not started. I just hope the government is looking and it will try to benefit from previous. If you are talking about police, there's a police reform committee that was set up, the Lambadami Commission. Nothing has been done. If you are talking about the military, there are several committees for the reform that has not been done. Even the Oronsai report briefly touched on the security sector. It touched only on the police. I can remember there are aspects where it said, like for example, I think it is whether the FCC or road safety should be merged with the police. Now, what I want to say, without these reforms, what we are seeing is that what we have is not, doing the work that we wanted to do. So what do we need to do? We have to make sure that we do these reforms in such a way that form follows function. When I talk of form, from numbers, from structures, from how many units. In the military, we talk that we are no longer in conventional warfare mode. That is Nigeria versus Cameroon or Nigeria versus Chad. This is Nigeria military versus Boko Haram versus bandits who are organized differently. So if we agree that we are no longer in conventional, we are in unconventional or irregular warfare, then even the way we structure our forces should be in line with the threats that we are facing. For example, what we see happening in Plateau, what we see happening in Sokoto and other places, it is not a place where you actually need a big unit like a battalion or a brigade to go and fight. It's the kind of situation where what you need are small mobile units, very, very mobile, that can move with communication, that can move from one place to another. It is a kind of operation that you even need junior commanders, lieutenants, captains, probably majors. Maximum a company. When I say a company, I'm talking about 300. I mean, a group of soldiers with their equipment about 100. These are the kind of situations that you meet. It is hardly that you will have any fight within Nigeria that you need a battalion to go and attack, or you need a brigade to go and attack. So, in that reform, renewed hope agenda, we talk of this security sector reform. We talk about this doctrine, but we need to see it happening. We need to see it happening in order to face the challenges that we are facing.
Now, David Mark also talked about human life becoming very cheap in Nigeria. This is something that several analysts have said, that with the failure of our security agencies to stop the killings, it has led to speculations that probably the bandits, terrorists, and what have you may have state backing or even sympathizers within our security agencies. What are your thoughts on this?
I'm a man of evidence. Since this starting from Boko Haram in 2009, you read, I'm sure you read, several places you hear that soldiers from France, soldiers from Cameroon, they have entered somewhere, they have come with helicopter, they have dropped weapons, or they have dropped this thing. But to the best of my ability, we do not have even a picture of any of this is actually happening. So if you ask me, I think we need to embrace that the problems we are having all over the country, they are homemade problems. For me, as an analyst, I have not seen any proof of foreign involvement. And the world is a global village. All the countries that are being mentioned, these are countries, this is my own deduction. These are countries that have economic stakes in this country. So I do not subscribe, with due respect to what other people said. Personally, I do not subscribe to this, issue of foreign intervention, people from France, people coming to drop in a helicopter, landing in our area. And even if we accept that, that should even make us to be more worried. Because if we have Air Force, we have artillery, we have intelligence, we have DSS, and you are telling me a helicopter came and landed in one village and dropped whatever it is carrying and then left, I think then we're in a terrible situation. But I do not believe these tendencies. What I want us to understand is that we're having homegrown threats. Homegrown threats. Like the American military will tell you that the military is to defend America against enemies, both foreign and domestic. I think we're having domestic threats, and we need to see it as that.
Very good, Group Captain Shehu. Now, if you were to take a peek into budgetary allocations to security and defense matters over time by past administrations in the last 2 decades, is it ever enough? And how has the armed forces utilized what has been provided to quell volatile scenarios, especially within Nigeria's borders?
Well, for everything in this world, there are global best practices and there are guidelines. When you are talking of defense, mind you, defense now, not the total security. The guidance that organizations like IMF or World Bank give is that a country should try to spend as much as 0.5% of its GDP, up to 10% of its GDP. The truth is that if you are looking in terms of that GDP, actually Nigeria is not even spending enough. An examination of what we have been spending, you will see us hovering 0.4, 0.3, apart from, I think, 2001, where we went to 0.6. So in terms, as a fraction of GDP, according to global this, we are not spending enough. There was a year that Chad was spending 7% of its GDP on security. Of course, maybe that will be extreme. These are things that we have to look. There's always, when you talk about how much a country should depend, there is this guidance, and there's always this issue of butter versus guns debate. That is to say, the security sector will compete with the sector of health, with education, with road construction. A country cannot afford to park all its money and pay for security. But at the same time, the more a country is facing security challenges, it is normal, it is natural, it is logical to see that its defense spending is going higher. Having said that, Nigeria for the past 10, 15 years has been spending a lot. Always it is security that is carrying the highest budget, even though we have not reached that threshold that a country at war should reach. But the most important thing, just like at the family level, it is not sometimes the amount of money that you budget for your security that will give you result. It is how you use that money. If you put a lot of money and then you allow it to be used for prestige projects, for projects that do not add capacity or the firepower or the operational, competence of our security forces, then you are only throwing your money down the into the waste basket. So this is the issue, and this is a challenge to both the executive and the National Assembly. The National Assembly passed this budget, but before they pass this budget, they will go through the ministries. If it is police, I want to believe their budget will go through the police. If it is military, it will go through the Ministry of Defense. They are supposed to do. We are supposed to have gatekeepers in these ministries that will tell police, okay, you just did change of uniform last year. Now you are telling me you want a so billion to do change of uniform. Change of uniform is not our priority. This is our priority. Unfortunately, this kind of sieving is not happening. In most cases, whatever the security agencies put in their budget is what is given to them. And with due respect to my colleagues in the security sector, sometimes, the interest of the leaders of the security may not be in line with national interest. There may be projects that do not add any value. So we need to see the supervising ministries doing their job. We need to see the executive before presenting endorse his job. And we need to have the National Assembly really scrutinizing. We just finished a debate of Navy trying to buy a presidential yacht for a country that is at war. Even if the Navy would do respect, if they don't need that money, you could give it to the police. It all adds to the security. But what I'm saying, with proper oversight, such things, You must, if you don't have that proper oversight, you will put a lot of money, but you will not get result. So make sure that every naira, every kobo is tied to something that makes our security forces stronger, more mobile, more armed, more trained. That is what we should be doing. If not, we'll continue plowing in the money day in, day out, counting the billions, but we are not seeing the result. Everybody has to be scrutinized. Every agency has to be scrutinized, from the ministries to the executive branch to the National Assembly. But there's a caveat here. If you are in the Army Committee, for example, the National Assembly, if you don't know what an APC is, if you don't know what an armored tank is, if you don't know what is the difference between an armored tank that has wheels and the one that has a track, what is needed, then definitely, again, it is a knowledge-driven enterprise. It means when the Army, when the Air Force, when the Navy bring debate for you, since you don't know anything and you don't have anything to advise you, it means you'll just be signing. And in the long run, the taxpayers' money will be wasted, and then we'll be having loss of lives because our security is not fit and properly, utilizing our defense resources.
Well, very well said, Group Captain Sadeeq Shehu. Now, I'd like your assessment, of the president's performance in terms of improving the security situation in our country, in the last 7 months. In his New Year message, the president said the security situation in Nigeria has improved under his administration. Do you agree with this?
Well, there are indices to indicate whether security has improved or not. As human beings, the first one that comes to mind is loss of lives. Then we may add loss of property, we may have injury, we may have even number of incidents. With due respect to Mr. President, while I will give the regime a benefit of doubt that it is too early to assess it, but month-on-month figures do not show that there's an improvement of security currently in Nigeria. But like I saw in the last time, in the end of year, we're saying a transition year. It is a transition period still between the Buhari administration and the Bola Ahmed Tinubu administration. But if we want to be fair to ourselves, and if we want to be fair to our leaders by guiding them, it is too early to say there's an improvement in security, because the figures available from both foreign, national, and independent observers, month on month, there are agencies that keep these figures. They have already started counting for the January. Already we are starting on a very footnote. In fact, when we look at the general year, even though if you say 2023, it is shared between the Buhari administration and the Tinubu administration, maybe six years each way, what we are having is that 2023 was worse than 2022. In terms of people killed, in terms of number of attacks, in terms of people kidnapped. So we need to go forward. Like I said, it is too early to pass a fail or pass mark for the administration. But it is good to know, and I think it is good for the political masters to be keeping these monthly figures of incidents. And when you say monthly figures of incidents, remember some of our areas are very remote. So even the figures that we read, these are figures because the people doing this, they are not magicians. What they use is what is reported by people like you, Arise TV, Channels TV, and other agencies. There are many incidents that are not reported. But even when we look at the ones that are reported, in fact, 2023 was worse than 2022. And from May to now, good or bad, the Tinubu administration has to take responsibility for that. So this is just in sum what I want to say. It is too early to pass judgment, but in all honesty, you cannot say that there's an improvement in security. But we hope to see it, and we'll continue to push for an improvement in security.
Indeed, Group Captain, but I'd like your thoughts on this briefly, please. Specifics. Why is Nigeria yet to fully embrace technology in the fight against terrorism and banditry, of course, especially widespread use of drones? We've seen how they've been deployed in conflict areas like Ukraine with spectacular results. And I remember a few years ago, even the Nigerian Air Force was contemplating having these drones being locally manufactured. But what are the prospects here on a wider scale in its fight against this scourge?
Thank you very much. Technology is a force enabler, it's a force multiplier. What is a force multiplier ability? It is something that increases the performance of a given number of troops without actually increasing the number of troops. Let's say a section of 10 soldiers. If they have technology like drones, Without even increasing the number of that section to 20 people, it is expected it will improve performance. But whenever we're talking about technology, again, it comes back to what I said earlier, the doctrine. You know, in a conventional warfare, country versus country, professional army versus professional army, it is in those kind of terrains that most technology will help you. In an unconventional warfare, irregular warfare, where you are not having boundaries. When I say conventional warfare, understand what I'm saying. Just to press the point, we are fighting with Chad. The drone takes up. If it crosses the border by Chad, it has entered Chad. Everything there, you can hit it, because that is enemy territory. Anything you see there, you can hit it. It is not the same in an irregular warfare, as unfortunately we saw in Tudunbiri. So while technology has its use, technology in unconventional warfare is not a silver bullet that will solve problems. What technology will help you do, probably, is reconnaissance, identification, tracing of people. But in most cases, where bandits, where kidnappers are hauled up with civilians like we saw in Tudunbiri, you cannot use that technology like we see in a video game. You have shot them. You need to have the man on the ground.
Group Captain Sadeeq Shehu, thank you so much for having this very enlightening conversation with us. Former Air Force spokesman, Group Captain Sadeeq Shehu, thank you for joining us on Newsday.